Roll call, please.
Mayor Grimminger.
Here.
Alderman Skaggs.
Here.
Alderwoman Zerwig. Alderman Stupi.
Here.
Alderman Jokers.
Here.
Alderman Steiger.
Here.
Alderman Okenfuss. Alderwoman Brunfield. Alderman Ross. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the agenda. I think everybody got the revised.
Move
copy.
approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I think we'll go right into the city administrator's report.
Mayor, I think before we start, just let all the viewing public know that we're missing 3 aldermen because they're at a training class in Jeff City on elected officials, just so that they know there's 3 aldermen doing some additional training on elected officials training in Jeff City.
Okay. Let me also remind the 5 of you that are here that we'll take all 5 of you voting yes to pass a ordinance.
Right.
Final passing ordinance. Okay. Thanks, Joe. Okay, Martin?
Okay, the items I'd like to highlight on the city administrator's report is number 2 to start with. The county fair is coming up. There was a meeting with the county commission and the fair board. You may have noted from the advertisements they're starting that the scope of the county fair is expanding. It's getting bigger and better every year. And this year they have some major events that will be bringing in trailers and such that they haven't had before. And they talked about where they're going to put these people, and they wanted to close the road and whatever. They decided that in a meeting that they could use the ball field for parking some of these large equipment trailers, with the understanding that our obligation, which is to maintain the ball field, will not be increased by virtue of this use. And so they have a contractor who will be available, and should there be any damage that's extraordinary, they're going to take care of it, rather than our crew having to come in after the fact and try and repair the damage.
Is this just on the south field?
Yes.
Do they have a game plan if we get a ton of rain?
They will not use the ball field.
So then what's the next game plan?
They won't have the event.
Oh.
It's kind of if we have that much rain, we can't hold the event.
It's a fair weather event.
Yeah. I met with Tim Bear regarding the approval of Westwood plans. We've kind of worked out what we think is a reasonable schedule, and that's reflected here. I'd like to call your attention to a meeting that's scheduled on June the 27th with and we've sent out, or will be sending out tomorrow, letters to all of the owners of property and the tenants on Westwood. We're asking them to come to a meeting on the 27th at the AMVETS, at the American Legion Hall, and to meet with whoever wants to be there. It'll be me and the engineer and any of you who choose to attend, to address questions about the scheduling and the process and how we're going to proceed. The engineer and I have discussed at some detail the need to keep the road open. We can't close Westwood for more than a couple of hours at a time. And we think we've got an approach that will allow them, the residents, to have access to their property throughout the construction period. It will be on a gravel base. I mean, we're going to tear out the asphalt and put down gravel. But I think we've got it all worked out. It also commits to them the replacement of their driveways. I know that will be a concern of everyone's. And again, I think we've worked through all the details on that, and we have a good handle on how we can handle it. We'll be able to answer every citizen's question. The purpose of the meeting is just for information, but also to find out if there are any special needs about which we do not know, and we need to know in order to make sure we don't inconvenience people more than we have to.
I had one person who lives back there ask me if it had been decided if we were doing asphalt or concrete. And are we putting out 2 different? I forgot what we.
No, it's asphalt.
Is it only asphalt? Okay.
And it'll be asphalt with concrete curbs and gutters, and we're adding stormwater inlets. So we're trying to improve the stormwater drainage, because right now it all kind of goes down to the bottom of the hill and the system isn't adequate to handle it. So there have been some intermediate stormwater pipes installed and inlets installed. And all in all, I think the citizens will be pleased with the outcome, although they will be somewhat inconvenienced during the construction. The Alderman Ross is not here to talk about the sign committee, but they're kind of on track. What happened at the last meeting was the downtown business district or the central business district had applied for a grant from the foundation, community foundation, for signage. They have withdrawn their grant request in favor of a request that the city will make for the signage that this committee has designed. The only thing between our last meeting and now that is noteworthy is there was a discussion of an information kiosk that would be maintained around the courthouse square that would have a permanent map and then a place for kind of event information. And so I'm currently working with staff to come up with a budget for that information kiosk. Then our application back to the foundation will be for the signage and that kiosk. But we had that information available at the Welcome Center, but not around Court Square. So we think it would be a good place to do that. I attended the Special Road District meeting, which was held on Monday. You have in your packets the revised proposal from the Special Road District that was in response to my questions about an amount in the contract, my questions about where we could spend the money, and my questions about accountability for the city. Three things that you should know. One is that you will find in that agreement a statement that the road district is committing to 15% of the revenues collected from city residents. That's how they came to that $24,000 figure originally, and that is the amount that they're asking us to commit to in that agreement. Secondly, I talked about the original proposal that they gave us limited us to work on Wilder and 4th Street. They said yes, that is what we want you to limit your expenditures to. Thirdly, I questioned the language about an audit. And my analogy is that if the mayor and the city clerk and an alderman each give me $1 and I put it in my pocket, and then I pull $1 out, how do you know which dollar I pulled out? Because $25,000, $24,000 isn't enough to get any one thing done. So they took out the language of a formal audit and just retained the language about accountability. So what you have before you now is an agreement that offers the city 15% of the revenues collected from the citizens within the incorporated limits of St. Genevieve who contribute to the Special Road District, and it can only be spent on Market or Wilder Street, or 4th or Wilder Street, and we have to provide some accountability for the expenditure of those funds, showing them that we spent them where we said we would spend them.
I think that, my opinion, I although there's nothing that we can do about it. I mean, nothing that we can officially do about it. It is, we asked them for money, and this is what they decided to give us. I think it's unacceptable. I think we deserve, out of $160,000, that we're going to get 24. That the citizens of the city are only getting $24,000 back is unacceptable. I mean, I would like our city attorney to investigate what if anything, that if the special road district wasn't in existence, if the county could give the city money to maintain city roads, maintain city streets. I don't know if they can legally do it or not. This is a legal way that at least another taxing entity can give the city money for streets, although I think it's an unfair amount. At that point, we would I guess we could ask the citizens of the city to, if that's true, to make a change in the special road district. The other thing that could happen if you, and again, it would be up to the voting population of the city, that they could always elect representatives to the special road district, that most of them are, I'm not sure how the district is split up and how the representatives are all elected. Does the whole district vote on all 3 members? Or is it split?
No, I think it's
It's split into different.
there are no divisions of districts.
Okay. It's at large?
I think so.
Okay.
Don't know the answer.
I mean, if that's the case, certainly I would hope that the citizens in town would want more representation on that board to maybe get more money for their own streets that they're paying for. So those are things that can only be done either one of those can only be done at election time. So right now it's, I guess, $24,000, and thank you, but I don't think I think we deserve a whole lot more than that.
Absolutely.
So if you would
I will.
do some checking, if you could, to see, and then we could.
Have we gotten an answer back as far as the formation of the special road district?
We've not received anything.
It's an additional 2 weeks. They have stopped looking then, apparently. Do we know?
I don't know.
You haven't gotten a formal answer that they can't find it, or
I
they
have not received a formal answer.
how do we put in a request for information to the Sunshine Act?
I know he was working with Hobie with the newspaper, and I'm not
We've
sure.
given them a month. they have to have that
The
information.
prior request was not a freedom
No.
of information request. It was just kind of an informal thing.
Can we request a formal answer to our questions?
Sure.
Do you need a motion?
No?
As a board, or
I can ask. I think it's a
Okay.
fair question. We can.
Okay.
I'll follow the mayor's instructions on that.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
It was a good time.
It's what the whole thing's about. Let's back up for a minute to the research and prepare data for the annexation committee. There is a meeting scheduled for the 20th of June at 6:30 in this chamber, in case anyone is interested in attending that meeting. We've had a pre-construction meeting for the safe routes to school. I was busy meeting with Horner and Schifrin on the kickoff meeting for the water system grant. Brenda covered the meeting on the safe routes to school. Is there anything in particular, Brenda, you would like to report?
There were 3 different companies represented that came. I understand that there have been 5 who actually picked up bid packets. So the bid packet opening is next Wednesday at 1. Excited to get started.
Okay. The hiking and biking trail. Brenda's been in contact with the representatives of the Department of Natural Resources and not Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Transportation. They're and I don't want to bring her back up to the podium necessarily, but we submitted certifications on the right-of-way. They have asked for additional certifications as it relates to the parking in park area. We can get that information to them, so the process is continuing. We haven't lost any ground, but it's one of those, every time you send something in, you get another 2 questions that they didn't ask you the first time you sent it in. But that's not atypical when you're dealing with a state agency, and I'll say that for the record. Terry and I met with representatives from Horner and Schifrin, and they're ready to begin the process of doing the water system grant. My question to them, in fairness to you, was, okay, we're spending $23,000 and the state's giving us $80,000. What are we going to get for $100,000? And what they said is, you're going to get an evaluation of your water system that tells you what it is, what you're capable of providing now, and what it is you will need to do over some period of time in order to meet your future needs. So that you'll be in a position to decide based on quantitative data what the second step is, and the third step is, and the fourth step is, and it'll all be understood as part of, because right now we don't know. But more important than that, having that knowledge based on a quantitative evaluation will put us in a better position to get assistance, if it's available, from state and federal agencies as we make these improvements. So I think the $23,000 that we've committed to it, it will be money well spent. And we're not getting the GIS data we hope we would get, because the state wouldn't fund it. But we'll still be a lot better off as a result of that, and so that's proceeding. You have in your packets next. Yes.
Terry was in agreement on that as far as spending that money or the study.
Terry was more in favor of it than I was.
Okay. Good. I mean, you guys kind of are,
Yeah.
experts on this stuff, so it's hard to make a judgment from where we sit on some of these things.
Well, my concern, frankly, was that when we kind of went through it, and Terry made a statement, the night we agreed to proceed with it, was, what is the work product? And I didn't feel like I understood that well enough at the time we authorized it, and I do now. I think as a result of this meeting, I have a good grasp of what the product will be from this expenditure.
I would say the board is probably where you were at before you had this meeting. So,
Yes.
and of course, when you say we're going to put in for a grant, more times than not, 99% of the time we're going to say put in for the grant.
Yeah. They're going to give us 80%
Yeah.
of it, and we're going to pay 20% of it. It's like you said at the time.
Yeah.
How can you pass that up?
You can always turn it down if you're accepted.
But
Yeah. Now that we're
I
accepted,
didn't have a good sense, and I really didn't feel like the board had a good sense of what we're going to get. And after that meeting, I have a better sense of that. And Terry's looking at me like he wants to say something.
Well, I was going to say, the other thing that's a really big asset is the water model that's going to come with it. You could, if anybody wanted to expand on the system, we should be able to pull that up on a computer and say, okay, if you pull 1,000 gallons of water a minute off of a new line that ties in here, what's it going to do? That's a huge asset to the city. That model is
in the GIS part, the mapping part that we're not going to get,
that would have been really huge.
and that's a cost of how much additional? Was that spec'd out?
Well, it was about $40,000
Yeah, I would say
in the original grant proposal.
Yeah, I'd say 40.
Yeah, if we could get our hands on a Trimble GIS unit, I mean, and it's a $700 item, then as the staff is going about their work, whenever they're working
Start
on a
charting.
valve, or they could pinpoint it. Over a period of a year, we'd have that data. But we don't have one of those units. And that's what that grant would have gotten us. It would have given us the data and the manpower to go out and locate our facility infrastructure from manholes and valves. And we're going to get there. We're still going to do that. We're just not going to do it under this grant.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Terry, while we're on this, what we're talking about out on Progress Parkway and that modeling will, the conversation that the board has had with extending that line and doing all of that, we will know what to do out there whenever this is.
When you get a water model, and what you can do is you can tie that in, like that was on the computer now, we can tie that line in, and then it should theoretically show you what's gonna happen, where pressures are gonna go up and where pressures are gonna go down. And then you can make a better informed decision of, okay, now what are we gonna do, because this is gonna happen. And it's just a huge model. It shows you, you open up a fire hydrant on Washington Street, it shows you what the water pressure drops to down on Jefferson. If you open up a fire hydrant on 8th and Market, it's going to tell you what the water pressure is going to do on Main Street. It's just huge. Now, it takes a while to build that, and they'll have to continuously grow with it. But the question was asked to them in the meeting, will we have that as a working model? And they said yes.
You have in your packets a letter from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It is a response to the meeting that the mayor and I had with them. Kathy Waltz was present, Colonel Hall was present, and Dennis Gilmore was present. And I say we received and reviewed a letter from Dennis Gilmore. I need to correct that. It was from Colonel Hall, but I believe it was drafted by Mr. Gilmore. I don't know if you've had a chance to read that or not. I've read it about 3 times. Kathy Waltz and I met today. We both read it 3 times and talked to each other and didn't agree on what it said. It's convoluted at best. So here's what's going to happen unless you tell me to do otherwise. I'm going to review our current agreements with the Corps of Engineers and go online to see whether the federal regulations that he references in that letter are taken out of context and determine whether what they're saying is what we have to live with. Frankly, I'm not convinced it is. I mean, we have an agreement with the Corps of Engineers that in some places says it covers phases 1 through 4, and in other places says it only applies to the levee construction. It is internally inconsistent. It is ambiguous. They are, I think, interpreting it, and their interpretation of it is one possible interpretation, but not the only possible interpretation. So I am not prepared to say to you today that the city of St. Genevieve should accept that letter, because I think there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered. I think our question about what we can do could have been answered by talking about revisions to our current agreement with the Corps of Engineers. Their conclusion is that in order to proceed, we have to close out Phase 1, and that our current agreement only applies to the main levee, and that any future work will have to be pursuant to another agreement, a new agreement. The documents that I've read, the language of the law allows for both interpretations. And we're going to have to decide ultimately whether we want to agree with them. And frankly, I see the logic of their conclusion. Or we shouldn't agree with them because the partnership agreement that was signed allows for a different process to be followed. I think that's an equally legitimate interpretation. And once we have done this, and I say we because Kathy's volunteered to spend time doing it, I'm going to do it. She's turning it over to Congressman Carnahan's legal staff. We'll have more input than we have now. We'll have a definitive conclusion of where we stand before we respond to the Corps' letter. I am ill-prepared to respond to it now. And I think given 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, I don't know how long it takes Congressman Carnahan's legal staff to do it. We'll be in a better position to respond. Frankly, the mayor was in that meeting. My feeling is that I don't get it. I mean, this was not what we talked about.
Right.
But that's my personal perception.
I mean, there's things obviously in here that came back that some of them didn't sound too bad, that yes, once we did sign off on a lot of these things, we could get credit.
Yeah,
but there's no guarantee that they really cover them by saying, we'll give you credit, but there's no guarantee that down the road that you're going to be able to.
But it also looks like they're asking us to sign off on phase one without having done an audit or an accountability of what we're entitled to under phase one. So there are lots of questions like that. You know, there was a lawsuit and there were damages awarded, and do we get credit for any of the amount that the city had to pay in order to satisfy that lawsuit? This letter doesn't address that. So before we close phase one, there are all these lingering issues about what the city should get credit for that aren't addressed. And my interpretation of this is they're saying, disregard that, just sign off on phase one and we'll start over again. Well, wait a minute. What about the $150,000 the city had to spend? Don't we get credit for it? And that's the kind of question that we're going to get resolved before we proceed. Okay. Before I go to the final item, I want to talk about two things. One is I was out taking my evening constitutional last night, and I approached the corner of Merchant and Main Street, and I observed two aldermen and a volunteer reconstructing the pergola. And so I want to thank Alderman Stupi and Skaggs for their contribution to that. I want to thank Mark Zerwig as a volunteer, and a guy I haven't met yet, John Vonderhaar, who Alderman Skaggs telling me did all the pre-cutting and notching of the redwood or the cedar before it was installed. I think all of you should go observe that work, and any citizen who is looking at this. It's a great statement for what the city and the citizens who choose to make themselves part of through volunteering their services can accomplish in a community such as St. Genevieve. It's well done, and it'll be there for a long time to come. And so I want to thank all those people.
I'd like to thank the fire station Cafe Beth for letting us use the electric for the saws and that down there. And I also thank the street department for the use of the street shed Sunday and delivering it and standing it for us. So thank them.
Okay, so the other items I'd like to talk about is that I attended an open house for the Lala Mandir building down on South Gabourey Creek that has recently been renovated, at least to the point that it's now stable and they've saved the building. And that was John Carl family, and he undertook that project, which was just amazing. That somebody would spend that much money to save a historic structure in the city, way beyond any economic value that it has to them. And that's the kind of spirit, I think, that is indicative of this community. There's a lot of that going on. I'd also like to then express gratitude that the Central Business District expressed to me for the cooperation of the Police Department and the Public Works Department in supporting the efforts for the French Heritage Festival last Saturday. Everyone has told me that things went really well. The organizers are thankful for the city's contribution to assisting in that. And I also understand that the participants in the bike race on Sunday are equally as complimentary of the city and its efforts in supporting that project. So I think thanks need to be extended to all of the city personnel who participated in making those things successful. Finally, for my report, you've received letters. There's been some comment about the report in the paper regarding the painting of Sarah's ice cream parlor. I'm not going to say any more about that, but I'm going to ask Brenda to come forward and present to you information related to those letters and the city's position on that, in that particular project.
It wasn't the ice cream parlor, it was the building she was.
I'm sorry, the antique store.
Yes, 132 Orchard. Last month's, I have no issues today, so I'm going to have to adjust myself. At last month's landmarks meeting, I submitted a report to the commission giving them an update on various properties within the historic district that I've been working on. Following the meeting, I gave an incorrect statement to the newspaper, and I'd like to take this opportunity to correct that statement and to offer my sincere apologies to those who were affected by it. My report included a building at 132 Merchant that Mr. Thomas was just talking about that had recently been painted. During the meeting, I took the opportunity to educate the commission and the public on the new federal laws on lead abatement and the dangers of lead abatement and lead paint in pre-1978 buildings. And I stress the importance of always checking to make sure that your contractor is certified by the EPA in lead abatement. After this meeting, I made a statement to the Herald that as far as I could determine, the contractor on the job at 132 Merchant was not EPA certified and that lead abatement protocol had not been followed. I have since been notified by the owner of the building, Ms. Sarah Menard, and also by the painting contractor, Mr. Larry Ritter, that Mr. Ritter does indeed hold an active EPA certification for lead abatement for renovators, and that Mr. Ritter did indeed follow the correct protocol by having the paint on the building tested for lead, which came back negative. Ms. Menard also assures me that all of the correct notifications and paperwork were completed as required by law. Please know that this was not a rush to judgment on my part, as I was directed by the state and by the EPA to a website to use as a resource for determining if a contractor or a company holds an EPA certification. Mr. Ritter was not listed on this or any other database that I could find. However, I'm pleased to find out that he is indeed certified as a lead renovator and that he lives right here in St. Genevieve. I also know now that not every name gets listed on this database, and that rather than depend upon research on a database, I should request a copy of the contractor certification. It certainly was not my intent to insult or to call into question Mr. Ritter's reputation, and I sincerely apologize to Mr. Ritter and to Ms. Menard for the disservice that they feel. My concern was for the community's understanding and awareness of the dangers of lead paint, which can certainly be found in the majority of St. Genevieve's buildings. I would like also to thank Ms. Menard and Mr. Ritter for calling me on the carpet on this. Had they not, I would never have known that St. Genevieve yet another certified painter that we can call upon, and I would not have had the chance to correct my mistake and to make it right for them. Thank you. It's about what happened? Yes, sir.
I would like to know why it took so long for me to get this letter.
Which one?
I just got it tonight, the letter from Sarah Menard. I would think it's important that it says you'd either mailed it to me or emailed it to me. I only got it tonight when I got my mail. And I've probably been asked a dozen times. Huh?
I don't know who distributed them to you. I received one this week when I came into work on my chair.
Well, it says June the 1st it's dated. I don't know when it was received here.
I don't know who gave those to you.
They came in the office and we put it in the boxes out there.
Well, I'd still like to get an email or something because I've probably been asked a dozen times and I had no idea until I read the paper last night.
Did you call City Hall and ask anybody what the story was?
I think they owe it to me. I don't need to be calling asking about a letter.
Okay. So you don't want to be proactive. You want us to always be proactive.
I think the city owes me the letter.
They gave you the letter.
Not tonight when I got my mail.
Only because you came in tonight. It's been in your box for 2 weeks, Alderman Stupi.
I don't come in here unless I need something.
So apparently you needed some information, so why don't you call and ask if there's something going on with that question? If you've been asked 12 times about it, let's not insult our city workers and say they're not doing their job, Alderman Stupi. That's embarrassing that you would say that.
Well, it's awfully embarrassing that you don't come to the meetings once in a while.
All right, guys. That's
What-
enough. That's enough. That's enough.
I've missed 3 meetings, Alderman Stupi.
Okay, let's go on. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda, for your hard work.
And that concludes the city administrator.
Great, okay. Staff report, Terry.
I'm here to answer any questions
Okay.
anybody might have.
Go ahead and tell them that we got the letter from the state.
Yeah.
You want to brag about that?
Barbara and Matt, I always like to brag.
Brag about this.
We did go ahead and receive our compliance inspection report letter from the state. Gave you all a copy. It is the first time in my career that I've received an inspection with such a good grade. They found 0 deficiencies in any one of the 8 categories that we're checked for. I would be virtually positive that the city's never received one either. It's, Gary Johnson, my boss, was in town yesterday, and we talked about things, and then I called him a while ago on this, and 35 years of his experience, he's never received a DNR inspection with 0 findings. So everybody's on the right track. All the community efforts through accepting the rate changes and paying for the bond issues and the loans and everything has really helped out. And I knew they were pretty pleased the first day when they brought everybody back the second day to look at everything. So,
And I don't want to detract from any of that, but there were some comments about fencing the well sites.
There's some things that we're not required to do, but would make very good sense. And one of them was our wells. They're not fenced. The door and the control panels are, of course, off the ground in a concrete structure and locked. But they did make reference to the fact that maybe we ought to think about that. They did make reference that most of us are aware of, the fact that the water plant reaches capacity in the summertime on certain days. And that we actually run the water plant past design capacity on some days. So, we're not perfect, but the deficiencies were not there. There are areas that we need to continue to improve on. We need to continue to look forward in the future to find ways to save money, to make things last longer, to keep running. But, if the water demands continue to grow like they did last month, eventually we will be looking at another capital improvement project down the road.
Yeah. I'd also like to point out, however, that we may be able to mitigate that by identifying the areas where we have controllable losses.
Absolutely.
And part of the grant that you have approved will help us identify areas where we're losing water that we may be able to stop. And to the degree we can control our losses, we will remove the pressure from any consideration for expanding the plant. So based on the numbers that we reviewed the other day, if we could just get a 10% improvement, we would be years away from having to do anything for a plant expansion. So our concentration needs to be on controlling our losses.
Yeah, we started working on water loss control and calculation, so we quantify those losses a few months back. I mean, it's been something since we've been here, but the data was hard to get put together because of just the situations that it was in. The water loss has improved a little bit, but we do have a substantial water loss in this community. DNR was not alarmed by it because they see much higher, but as a cost-effective measure, it's going to be better for us to focus our resources on fixing that problem and then gaining, if we could fix 20% of our loss or 10% of our loss, we just gain 10% on the other end of the capacity. So we're putting a big effort in it, and we will continue to do that. As we have these breaks and leaks, Martin was able to come by and see one, I think it was Monday, valves we couldn't shut off and lines were in the wrong spot that were leaking, just a lot of those things, and we'll continue to fix those. And But I couldn't be more pleased with the progress that's been made since I've been here. I can't say enough about the staff and the community support. It's been amazing. Any questions?
We got, oh, I was just gonna talk about some water loss you got planned to fix tomorrow, right?
Yes, we have water loss that we plan on fixing tomorrow, on Herzog Street, off of
Yeah,
9th
that's
Street.
what
There's a line there, you know, I met with the city administrator, we've talked about it, I actually have a picture of it drawn on my book.
And I think that deserves some discussion. The line on Herzog is a 2-inch galvanized line that should not be part of the city's distribution system. I think the city has treated it as part of its system over the years, and the homes are metered, and there have been repairs on it. So it's a little disingenuous now to look at it and say, oh, I'm sorry, that's not part of the city system. But soon, like as soon as possible, we need to replace that line. It's not a major capital expense, but unlike the rest of the city system, where we have easements and we can do that work, this is private property. The city has no rights to go up there, and we're going to fix the leak because it's the right thing to do. But ultimately, we need to get utility easements from the property owners. We need to take that Swiss cheese galvanized line out of the ground, and we need to reinstall a PVC line that doesn't require going in there every couple of months and putting a clamp on a hole. So we'll be talking about that in the future, but that's what needs to be done there.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Terry. Committee reports? Anybody? Okay, we'll go on to the minutes of the May 24th meeting.
Move to approve.
All in favor? Opposed? Minutes of the closed session.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, resolution 2012-51, a resolution authorizing the 1977 galleon roller be declared surplus property and providing further authority.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Resolution 2012-52, a resolution appointing Gary Shield to the St. Genevieve Tourism Tax Commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Old business, bill number 3866, second reading.
An ordinance amending the City of St. Genevieve Municipal Code, Chapter 405, zoning regulations, asset 440.
Move approval.
Roll call.
Alderman Skaggs.
Yes.
Alderman Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderwoman Broomfield.
Yes.
5 yes, 0 no's, 3 absent. Bill number 3866 now becomes ordinance 3805.
Thank you. Bill number 3867, second reading.
An ordinance amending section 115.090, city clerk election duties of the St. Genevieve Code of Ordinances.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Alderwoman Broomfield.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Skaggs.
Yes.
5 yes, 0 no's, 3 absent. Bill number 3867 now becomes ordinance 3806.
Thank you. New business, bill number 3868, first reading.
An ordinance to rezone a parcel of land in St. Germain, Missouri.
This is the
Citizens
Citizen Electric Warehouse property.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, bill number 3869, first reading.
An ordinance accepting and approving a plat for the new addition of Crestlawn Cemetery within the city limits of the city of St. Genevieve.
Question.
Sure.
This is the unused part, I assume, right up,
The new part.
the new part? Okay,
Now, you previously approved rules and regulations that would apply
Correct.
to all parts of this.
correct.
This will be the plat that's recorded for the new part.
This is the new part, this is the whole piece of property, though. This is the new part plus the part that we haven't developed yet. Yeah. This part.
I think when we move into the other sections, we will need to record additional plats by row and number.
Oh, the individual ones, but,
All we're recording is
Future
the
gravesites that hadn't been
oh,
specified.
okay.
the northern portion of this, because each row and plat has a number.
Okay.
When we move to the next section, we will have to assign a row and number to these future developments,
Okay.
and then record that back.
Okay. Doesn't this whole plat included in this?
I think what we're establishing as unique parcels are the things that have numbers.
Okay. 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 Yes. Okay. Second. You catch that? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, bill number 3870, first reading.
An ordinance vacating a portion of 2nd Street in the city of St. Genevieve.
I move approval.
Second.
I'd like some discussion. The city attorney reviewing this asked for, did we distribute the revised language on the?
Yes.
Okay. Was concerned about, in the original document, the kind of indeterminate description, which would have gone forever. So we revised that description. Mr. Hoffman is here tonight, who is the person who has requested this, and the reason he requested it, as you may recall, is that he wants to renovate the old blacksmith building, and in order to do so, he needs access to it through a driveway that would go over what would otherwise be city property, and we understand his reluctance to do that. In addition to which, he asked that we come look at the ditch, and that we commit to removing the debris and trees that have fallen down, and get it to a condition where he can maintain it, because he doesn't have equipment, dump trucks. So we met out there today with he and I and Dave and Gary, and we figured it's probably the road crew for a day with a couple of dump trucks to get all that stuff out. I think it's a reasonable request on his part, but he would like to understand that the board is sympathetic to and supports our removal of that debris before he takes it over. You don't, as a, generally we are abandoning the right-of-way, and informally agreeing to spend our city resources to at least get it cleaned up so he can then maintain it from now on.
I think it'd be the best. I was down there over the weekend, looked at it. So you mentioned something to me, and it's not his problem to clean it up. I thought, it was our property. We should have took care of it a long time ago. So I request that we clean it up for him.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Nice job.
You seconded
Linda
it?
did it.
No,
Wait a second.
I did. You did.
Second, John.
Okay,
did the
I
last
thought you
one, I
were
did this one, yeah.
seconding, are you making that an emotion farm to have that cleaned out?
No, that's it.
No,
Okay.
we're already committed to
Okay,
that.
sorry.
They're gonna go ahead and approve the vacation of the right of way. I'm just asking for their informal consent to do the work that Mr. Hoffman has requested. I guess I could do it without consent, but I wouldn't want to do it without your knowledge.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of 3870, first reading?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Bill number 3871, first reading.
An ordinance approving the purchase of a 7x14 enclosed box trailer for tech rescue equipment for the St. Genevieve Fire Department.
But Pam, is that really you got
I know,
3872 on this
it's
one?
really 3871, not 3872.
Oh.
And the amount not to exceed $4,841.
Oh, I'm here.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I was
Opposed?
just, wanted to see if the board would be amenable to maybe having a second reading for this, because it is already paid for, right, Martin?
It's coming from a grant.
Yeah.
Certainly, there would be no harm in considering a second reading at the same time.
Well, I guess I'd have to see if everybody's up for
Move for second reading.
second.
All in favor of second reading?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, second reading of bill number 3871.
An ordinance approving the purchase of a 7x14 enclosed box trailer for tech rescue equipment for the St. Genevieve Fire Department in an amount not to exceed $4,841.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Alderman Skaggs.
Yes.
Alderman Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderwoman Greenfield.
Yes.
5 yes, 0 no's, 3 absent. Bill number 3871 now becomes ordinance 3807.
Okay, public comments, anyone? Okay, going to other business, we have 2 items listed. Approval of temporary liquor license for the Knights of Columbus, Council 1037 for the Jour de Fête, August 11th and 12th.
Move to approve.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and approval of request for a certificate of appropriateness from Southern State Properties Incorporated for the demolition of the trailer at number 3 Terrace Heights.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Any other business? I would like to say also that both events this weekend, I was down at both of them and thought they went over very well. And I heard from some of the riders in the race and were very pleased and happy. And talked to Todd, and he couldn't say enough about the volunteers that we were able that came forward and helped, and the police department. And I don't think there were really any issues. So it came off real good.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Scott and Amy Drury. They coordinate a lot of the volunteers, and they worked their butt off on Sunday. And I know the event on Saturday went well too. So Scott and Amy Drury, they were down there coordinating all the volunteers on Sunday. I got one announcement. There's supposed to be a tourism meeting tomorrow, but it's got moved back till next Friday at 8:30 or 9:30. I forget the time, but it's not tomorrow. It's next Friday.
Stephanie's son, who went into the military, was in boot camp, contracted some infection or something that caused for him to be hospitalized, and they haven't been able to figure out what it was, and she went down to check on it, to help coordinate his health, and she apologized for not being able to get back tonight for her meeting. But she didn't have staff coverage for tomorrow, so she'll be back tomorrow morning in the office. And so they postponed the tourism meeting because of or lack of being available and being out this week. So that was reasonable.
Okay. Not anything else? Yes.
One thing, I got a phone call Friday. People down at Boulder asked the next time they blow with the turbo, I guess, to clean the streets.
Yeah.
They asked if you could use, I guess, a fire apparatus to wash it because it blew everything against their painted fences.
I will communicate that in the morning or Monday morning.
Okay. Motion to mow, nothing else? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Marty, you might want to. I want to make sure you knew I